The Andy Poland Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Yes, that is sunshine streaming through the window here on Jennifer Street in beautiful Northwest Washington, D.C. at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. Enjoy it while you can. Looks like we're headed for another round of rain this week. Man, a lot of rain. Well, we didn't have much snow, so maybe this is the moisture we were due over the winter. Listen to me trying to talk like a meteorologist. Anyway, it is what it is. There's enough sunshine in between to get done what you need to get done, and some of what I did yesterday was indoors. In fact, a lot of what I did yesterday was indoors. Watched a lot of basketball, watched some baseball, and had a wonderful Mother's Day with my daughter and her husband and her granddaughter. We went over there for Mother's Day brunch, and hope yours was as good as mine, because it was a great deal of fun yesterday. So while all this was going on, all of our Mother's Day activities, there was the usual round of sports. There was baseball and there was basketball. We will get to the two playoff games yesterday, lopsided, especially what happened to the Knicks. Oh, my God. That was unbelievable in that not so much that the Knicks lost, but that it was never a game. It was a, 28-point lead for Indiana at the half. They wound up winning by 32, which is like too short of a franchise record in a playoff game. And Mike Breen, who's doing the game, accurately described it as the Mother's Day massacre. If you go way back, I think it was 1985, the Celtics were just killing the Lakers on Memorial Day. They called it the Memorial Day Massacre. I forget what the final score was, but it was similar to yesterday, 121-89. But the Lakers came back and won the series, which was the first time they'd ever beaten Boston. All those years of matchups in the finals, Celtics always won. When Jerry West finally got his championship with the Lakers, it was against the Knicks. Every other year, it seemed he was losing to the Celtics in the finals. And so that was a big breakthrough for them. And we'll see. I mean, that was game one of the series, and then it shifted. This is now game 4 from yesterday. Looks like the Knicks may be out of gas. And they've got injuries. OG Anunoby not playing for them. And it just seems like they don't have anything left in the tank. We'll see what happens when they head to game 5, but not really, I don't think, much hope for the Knicks. And then some counted out the defending champs, and maybe we shouldn't have, but I was with a lot of people, including Charles Barkley, on this in the opening game the second game of the series, where Minnesota just completely handcuffed Denver, held them to 80 points, and with the way Anthony Edwards was playing, all the Michael Jordan comparisons. I was with Charles Barkley when he said this last week.
This series is a wrap. Minnesota is better than the Nuggets. No disrespect. They don't have an advantage. The MVP is getting outplayed. They don't have an advantage anywhere. Jamal Murray, I think he's still hurt a little bit, but other than that, they don't have an advantage anywhere. This series is a wrap. The Minnesota Timberwolves, you know, I said before the season, I didn't believe in them. They have changed my mind 100%. They are going to win this series. I don't know who they're going to play. The other series could be very entertaining. But, man, they are for real. They have that guy. If you have that guy, and that boy for that bulldog, he might as well be a damn wolf, because he ain't messing around. He's like, boys, y'all come on and follow me. And the other guys are following him. But when you have a guy like that, and you have some other good players, because no team is going to be good unless you have a guy. You don't think Jokic is a guy? He is a guy, but not this series. Them two guys, like, he couldn't even, think about this. He couldn't even dominate one of them. The other one was at home. Congratulations for having a baby. He couldn't even dominate when the other one was there. You know how rough it's going to be going to Minnesota against them two guys? Because you saw what happened in game 1. And he didn't play tonight. I said, well, the Joker can dominate tonight because Rudy's not here. You never thought that Denver was going to win that game tonight. The Minnesota Timberwolves are for real. They're going to sweep the Denver Nuggets, period.
Nope. Loud wrong, Charles. Not the first to be loud wrong, not the first time he was loud wrong. But what we saw on Friday night was maybe what we're going to see for the rest of the series because Denver was dominant. They pretty much did to Minnesota what the Timberwolves did to them on their home court, winning 117-90. And then yesterday, the Nuggets win 115-107. Oh, yeah, that guy that Charles is talking about, that guy, Anthony Edwards, he did his thing with 44 points. He just didn't have enough help. And the defending champs played like the defending champs. Backs against the wall. Jokic with 35 points. Jamal Murray, who had been terrible in this series, 19 points yesterday. Aaron Gordon, who hadn't given him much, 27 points. So right now, you'd have to think with Denver going home with the series tied at 2 and a huge momentum shift, who do you favor now? And maybe you go back to what Tim Legler said at the start of the playoffs. I don't think anybody's getting by them. I don't think anybody's beating the defending champs. They look like the defending champs now. Things could change, and that's been the great thing about these playoffs. I mean, everybody has to have an instant opinion these days, and Charles did what he was paid to do, give an instant opinion after Game 2, where it looked like Minnesota had totally locked up Denver, and Denver had no answers. Well, this weekend, they had answers in Minnesota, and now they go to Denver tomorrow night for Game 5 of what looks like is a series that has had a major shift in momentum. I don't even know if it's going to be close the rest of the way. There I go again, making instant judgments. But right now, it looks like Denver has found the answer, and whatever was troubling them in their first 2 games of the series against Minnesota, not evident there. All right, there is one player left, one position player left. Patrick Corbin is still pitching for the Nats, not pitching well, but eating up a bunch of innings, though he did have a good performance on Friday night. But the one position player that remains on the team is Victor Robles. And Robles was a key player on their way to winning the World Series in 2019. He had really the only full season of his career. He's had a bunch of injuries since then. He played 155 games. He had 255 with 17 home runs, and he was amazing in the field. He was their best outfielder, saved a lot of runs with his glove. Now, I mean, he's hurt all the time, but now he's back in the lineup, and yesterday may have single-handedly cost them the game against the Red Sox, which they lost 3-2. So routine fly ball, what do they call that, a can of corn? He dropped it, an error, which kind of led to some unraveling by Mackenzie Gore, and he gave up all 3 runs in that inning. And then he tries to make up for it with a base running error that is almost beyond belief. I mean, it's Little League stupid. Winds up with another runner on third base, so he's out. And so, they lose the game by 1 run. Gore settled down, but it was too late. And the Nats wind up coming up short 3-2 in a season where, they're maybe not going to be a playoff team, but they're looking like they're pretty good. And you never know, at the end of the year, they might be in the 80s wins kind of number, 83, 84, which may get them into a wild card. We'll see. But this was really stunning. And Davey Martinez has been here. This is his 7th year. Almost never have I heard him criticize a player. Here he was given the opportunity to do that. This initially is as far as he would go yesterday.
Made some mistakes, drop fly ball, ran into some outs on the bases. So it cost us, might have cost us the game. You don't know that, but when you make those kind of mistakes, it's definitely gonna hamper the way you finish the game. So. It was unfortunate, because Mackenzie settled down and he pitched really, really well. He threw the ball well. I went out to talk to him there just to kind of give him a breather, but, he was the guy to finish that inning out, and he did really well.
That is the usual tempered Davey response. But when they circled back to this later in the news conference, did about 5 or 6 minutes with the media last night, when they circled back to it, this is something that I don't know if I've ever heard this out of Martinez since he became the Nats manager in 2018. Listen to this.
I'm going to be totally honest with you. I wanted to take him out of the game. And I couldn't because Winker was hurt a little bit. So I knew that he had back spasms. So that can't happen. that can't happen. I mean, like I said, it changed the game a little bit there. So we could have been out of that inning. Those are the things that as I talk about with Louis Garcia being here so long, that we had to clean up, and we got to clean those things up with him as well. I mean, that just can't happen anymore.
Did you have a conversation with him during the game about it?
No, I'm going to talk to him tomorrow. Like I said, I needed him focused in the game, but I know he needed to play. But I'm going to talk to him tomorrow about it because we can't allow it to happen.
Well, here's the situation, I think, and they've got him under contract, so they got to pay him this year. I don't think they have options on him. They may, but he's not giving them anything. Of course, he hasn't played much this year because he's been hurt again. He's had 11 at-bats and is hitting 182 with 2 hits and 3 strikeouts. Since he had that great year in 2019, looked like he might be the center fielder of the future for a long time, he's barely played. Now, he had the short season following the championship in 2020 because of the pandemic. But then in 2021, he managed only 107 games. 2022, 132. And he played only 36 last year. So I think the last remaining position player is on a very short leash now, to say the least. I guess because of the back spasms that Jesse Winker had last night, which forced him out of the game, Davey may be forced to play Robles tonight as they take on the White Sox until they figure out, is James Wood finally going to be ready to come up? I don't know. I think they're hesitant to do that. We saw what happened with Jackson Holliday. They brought him up from the minors. He was hitting like .330 in the minors, and he went, I think, 2 for 35 with 17 strikeouts. Had to send him back down. They don't want to do that, but I think we're looking at diminishing returns on Victor Robles, and might be time to turn the page. Before I get to the lottery, I forgot to mention this at the top. You may have heard this at the end of Unsportsmanlike if you're listening. The NFL looks like the schedule is going to come out this week. It's been reported that they're going to release the whole schedule Wednesday, but they have announced, and they do this, they like to trickle things out. There's such an embarrassment of riches that they can really do whatever they want. So they like to play with people a little bit. So own the couple of weeks. Don't just roll out the schedule. Tease it a little bit. So they've been doing that for over a week, and now the latest is that the Chiefs, who always have, the champion always has the opening game at home on a Thursday night. They're going to play the Ravens in a rematch of the AFC Championship game. So that's Thursday, September 5th at Arrowhead Stadium. And it's the NFL's ball, and they can do what they want with it, but just seems like you're going to have people watching that game no matter who plays in it. And of all the opponents, they picked maybe the best one out of the division to open the season with, the Ravens. Okay, that's fine, but that's going to be the opening game. There also is going to be a Friday night game, which is going to be played in Brazil, and that's going to be the Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. And I guess we'll get the rest of the schedule this weekend. Lottery yesterday. And, the Wizards had, along with Denver, the highest odds of getting the number 1 pick. Now, the 2 times that they've gotten the number 1 pick, 2001, they took Kwame Brown, bust. 2010, they took John Wall, who was the obvious pick. Wall had a good career. He made a lot of money here. He was hurt a lot. So this year, the draft people, the people who understand the draft, and it's harder and harder to understand because, and here's a staggering number that I read over the weekend. The last white American basketball player to be drafted number one was Kent Benson in 1977. So, of course, there have been African-American number ones from the U.S., but the foreign influence is bigger and bigger, where you see Victor Wembanyama going number 1. It might be a foreign player again this year, but we did have a draft this year that that went like kind of a yawn because there isn't a Wembanyama this year, but there was a surprise as they were rolling out the last 5 picks.
The 5th pick will be made by the Detroit Pistons.
Unbelievable. Already some wrinkles. We've got our 4. Will it be the Washington Wizards, the San Antonio Spurs, the Houston Rockets, or Atlanta Hawks that will get that number 1 overall pick? You'll wait.
The fourth pick in the NBA draft goes to the San Antonio Spurs. The third pick belongs to the Houston Rockets. The second pick will be made by the Washington Wizards, and that means that the number one pick in the 2024 NBA draft goes to the Atlanta Hawks.
Now, I like Elle Duncan, but she needed to react a little bit more strongly when Detroit got number 5, because they had 14 wins this year. They had an abysmal season. They were tanking, and it blew up in their face. So there was that angle, and there was the other angle that now, because one of the 3 worst teams was not going to get one of the top 3 picks, that it meant there was going to be a big surprise. And the Atlanta Hawks, which had only a 3% chance of getting the number 1 pick, got the number 1 pick. Now, the question is this year, what do you do with that pick? I mean, what is the move to make when you don't have really a lot of known players? Now, there seems to be a lot of interest in, again, these are players you probably have never heard of. Alexander Sarr from Perth, 7 feet 1, 217 pounds, so another string bean. The G League has Matas Buzelis, 19-year-old, born in Chicago, but his parents were Lithuanian basketball players. One you may be familiar with. You've seen him win the national championship the last 2 years, Donovan Klingon from Connecticut. And this may be a wild card. Gary Parrish of CBS Sports has this suggestion for the Wizards.
And in your mock, you have them taking the 23-24 SEC Freshman of the Year, Reed Sheppard. And it's remarkable when you think about it, GP, because this is someone who was ranked within the top 80 when you talk about the players coming out of the class of 2023. And he was creeping up top 10, top 5, and you have him going second overall in this mock.
Yeah, he wouldn't have gone second in last year's draft. He might not have gone second in next year's draft. But in a draft that is universally regarded as weaker than most, you can afford to take a flyer on a guy like Reed Sheppard this high in this draft. I acknowledge up front I got him higher than most, but I just love not everything about him. Like, I love everything about LeBron James and Kevin Durant. Reed Sheppard's not that. But he can dribble, he can pass, he can shoot. He was above 50% from the field at Kentucky. He was above 50% from 3 at Kentucky. He's a better than most people realize athlete as well. He's got all the good genes, mom and dad, both excellent college basketball players. So at Kentucky, he had those moments where you looked at him and you were like, why is this guy not in everybody's top 5? Because, he's a little undersized for a 2 guard, but I think he's going to play combo at the NBA level, at which point he's got, good enough size. He can jump better than maybe most realize. So he's a real athlete playing that position. Simply put, I'm not comparing him to Steph Curry. I never would. But one of the things I remember about Steph Curry through the draft process is people focus so much on what they thought he couldn't do as opposed to all of the things he could clearly do that we were watching right in front of us with our own eyes. If you watch Kentucky this season, you saw a young man who could dribble, pass, shoot off the bounce. He could shoot off of screens. He could shoot in transition, and those types of players are immensely valuable in the NBA right now. Somebody's going to take Reed Sheppard high in this draft. I think it should be Washington, and they'll be glad they did.
Well, we'll see. It sounds like a pick they would have made under the last regime or the regime before that. We'll see. It's Michael Winger running things, and he may be looking more like Bilal Coulibaly they picked last year out of France. That I would say that was a good pick. So I think there may be more of an international look, but who knows? And even you listen to Parrish there, he's not freaking out about Reed Sheppard. It's like, yeah, okay, he good, not great, but good, and he could be a serviceable player. So anyway, it's probably going to take a few more years of this. The player that's most intriguing, and there was a feature story done about him over the weekend, is Cooper Flagg. And Cooper Flagg is out of Maine, went to school in Florida last few years, won the national title. He's like 6'9", and grew up with parents who taught him about Michael Jordan and Larry Bird. So we'll see. But That's next year. So it's going to take another crapola season if they're going to be picking at the top of the draft and draft somebody like that next season. Coming up, we'll get to react from the weekend, the mini camp. There's a firestorm, not about anything that happened on the field. It's over clothing. Yeah, we'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Got Tony on a Monday. Andy's got to turn the microphone on a little bit earlier, and we roll on. We roll on with the weekend that was at Ashburn as the Commanders started their rookie minicamp on Friday, wrapped it up yesterday. They have a day off today, and then the off-season workouts will start to include veterans as they come in. There's a schedule. It's not like they're working out every day, but there's like 3 days a week here and there, and then they have the full minicamp next month. I think it's late next month, and then they break for like an entire month. So the off-season program, not what it used to be, but does provide an opportunity for veterans and now the rookies to start to mix together as they got their first look at themselves in uniforms over the weekend. And yes, a very gracious thank you from Jayden Daniels to Tress Way for giving up number 5. Way even got emotional when talking about the decision to give it up. And Daniels wouldn't give up what he's giving up in return. There's a report that he's supposed to send Tress Way and his family to an Oklahoma LSU game after Tress Way finishes playing. Way played at Oklahoma, of course, and Daniels finished his career at LSU. So that's supposed to happen down the line. But Daniels, said he didn't have to do that. It was very nice of him to do it. Mentioned that he was a team captain, how valuable he's been to the team. So all graciousness all around. That was nice. There is one little controversy, if you want to call it that, from the weekend, and that is that Dan Quinn showed up for his news conference on Saturday. So they had their Friday workouts. The players spoke to the media on Friday afternoon, and then Saturday morning, before they had their second workout, Quinn talked to the media, and he was wearing a T-shirt. It had the Commanders logo on it, but it also had 2 feathers hanging from it, from the W. And that is not a Nike league product. Everything's got to be licensed now. So that was an unlicensed shirt. So there's one problem there for sure, in that the league is, I think, going to fine him for that, because they're really careful about these things. Nike pays the NFL millions and millions of dollars to make their uniforms and to make their gear, so they're not going to have some knockoff being shown around the country with the new head coach of the team wearing that. So that's the smaller of the problems. The bigger of the problems is this. The name controversy is still there, and when the new ownership group took over with Josh Harris and Mitch Rales, they threw around the Redskins word so much that some said, hey, you going to change it back? And no, not going to change it back, they said. And they really can't change it back. But this is Native American imagery on there. And, I think Commanders should go. You've heard various reports that ownership doesn't like the name and they want to get rid of anything that's associated with Dan Snyder, and I don't blame them for that, because the big 2-2-2-2-2 reveal was a complete disaster, and the name was just sort of and they're not even selling stuff. Like, all those years we heard, hey, if they change the name of the team, think how much money Dan Snyder's going to make when people buy the new gear with the new logo. No, it's not happening. People don't like it. But this is now a double-edged thing. And then when the team was asked about it, it wasn't like they said, oh, yeah, somebody just sent that to Dan and he put it on, probably should. No comment, which I think makes it even more of an issue. And for Quinn, he should know better. This is not his first time as a head coach. This isn't like that boob Jim Zorn who gets introduced and doesn't know the team colors. He's a veteran NFL coach, and he's been here since January, and he should have a better understanding of this. Some say, big deal, he wore the wrong shirt. Yeah, but there's ramifications from it, and I will not be surprised if the league fines him, and I wonder how the team is going to approach a statement, they're probably going to have to say something. Off-season workouts begin again tomorrow. I'm sure Quinn is going to be asked about it. I don't know why he wasn't asked about it on Saturday. I guess there's many other big stories to get to, and we'll get to some of them here. But that was really a stunner. And I don't know Dan Quinn, but I've observed him. My nephew is on the training staff with the Falcons and worked with Quinn when he was there and said he would walk through fire for him. Loves the guy, and everything you hear about him is he's a wonderful person and I think a good coach. But that was a mistake, and how they patched that up be interesting. I didn't think we'd be still in the stage of patching up blunders, but that might fall under the category of Coach Blunder, putting on a T-shirt that probably arrived in his office in the mail and went, hey, this is pretty nice. I'll put this on. No, you really can't do that. Hey, you want to feel old? You want to realize how long it's been since this team was really good? This was Brandon Coleman, their, I think it was third-round draft pick out of TCU. There's hope that he can become their left tackle. This was the question he was asked as his little news conference wrapped up Friday.
Has anyone talked to you about the legacy of the Hogs offensive line back in the day? Did you know anything about that coming in?
Unfortunately, I don't.
No? Well, they'll probably have to teach you back when they won the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Oh, that hurts a little bit, because there's even reason to believe that this Major Tutty, which is a joke, is supposed to be a pig in kind of an homage to the Hogs. And, when you think of the image of the team and certainly the heart and soul of those 3 Super Bowl championship teams, it was the Hogs. And here's, I understand he's young, and I understand he was born long after they won their last championship. But maybe a little bit of schooling, maybe a little bit of a history lesson before he talks to the media might not have been a terrible idea. Again, not a big federal case, just something to note. As for Quinn, what he's looking to achieve or what he was looking to achieve this past weekend?
Number one, like for Jayden, for all the guys, we're going to establish some standards about how we want to practice, how we want to go through things, how, a certain player can learn and perform. So for him and for all the teammates going through here, it's like, let's get this process started and finding the details to go. What I saw on the field was pretty much exactly, what we saw from, his time. But what you don't see on the tape is like how much this guy loves football. Like he works so hard at it, Nikki, that like it's one of the things that makes my heart smile about him, just like the type of competitor he is and the way he goes about his business. And so he's here early, he just goes for it. And not everybody has that trait to say, I'm not going to be stopped. And so it's a really cool thing.
Not a bad word said about Jayden Daniels so far. All good stuff from the weekend. There was some news, though, that Quinn addressed. And I don't want to say this is troubling yet, but it is a little bit of a head-scratcher. Remember when they took Johnny Newton from Illinois in the second round, like they were giddy because they were so surprised that he was there. Now, he played through a foot injury last year, and he showed up for this mini camp not dressed. He's got a boot on his right foot from that injury. But that's not all. This is Quinn revealing something that, is it possible? Because he really wasn't pressed on this, and I think he will be tomorrow if he speaks to the media tomorrow or sometime this week, you took a player who's got a foot injury. We didn't know that it's injuries to both feet. Here he is.
Foot that he had procedure done is actually doing really well, so has an issue with the other foot. So he'll get a procedure done in the next week and then get back started and get going with the process again. But man, do we have high hopes for him. Like he is such a kick-ass competitor. So in some ways, when you have to get a procedure done, better to do it early. That this didn't happen in the end of August or in September where it sets you back. So the fact that it's happening now, much better to get that organized first.
Is it the same issue just on the other foot, or
correct?
So how long would he be out?
I'm not giving any timelines for that, unless we'll get right into him getting the procedure and get started. Knowing him, this is one tough customer, so it'll be likely slow down than hurried up.
Well, this is what Nikki Jabala wrote in the Post in covering this. She says, it's unclear when Newton suffered the left foot injury when the Commanders became aware of it. Newton told reporters April 26th he was fully healed, fully ready to go after recovering from the right foot injury. Quinn said the left foot was discovered in a checkup, but didn't say when that took place. So, the question that you have to have is, did they know about this injury to the other foot? They knew about one foot going into the draft. Did they know about the other foot before they took him number 2? And is that the reason that he was still on the board in the second round, because he was projected to be a first-round pick, that teams knew about the injury to the other foot or the need for surgery on the other foot? And did the Commanders not do their due diligence on this? Did they not know that the other foot needed surgery? So in the long run, it may not be a big deal, and he's a defensive tackle, so at best, he's going to be rotating in with the 2 highly paid guys at that spot. But the question is, was something overlooked here? Did with all the work that went into this, and I think they did a really good job in the draft. They're getting A's in most of the draft analysis, and it looks like they came away with some players here, and they did very well in free agency. But is it possible they missed something there? I mean, that's a heck of a thing to miss, but that is something to be a little bit concerned about. As far as news conferences, this guy looks like he's going to be a star, and why not? Because football is his family business. That's Luke McCaffrey, the wide receiver that they took out of Rice. And he, of course, is the son of Ed McCaffrey, who won a couple of Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos, and the brother of Christian McCaffrey. So he came into this well prepared, as he told reporters.
I mean, they helped a ton. At the end of the day, you're going to get to a team, and everything's going to be a little bit different. And so, you have the fundamentals that you learn growing up, hard work, kind of earn your way, and don't force yourself into any situation. But when it comes to this team, I think I've learned so much already in one day. Just about, competition, just about camaraderie, just about what this culture is going to be about. And I think that's what excites me right now, is that I kind of get to dive into a new culture, a new opportunity, and be a part of this team with a lot of great faces and a lot of great people.
As former QB, what's it like with Jayden catching passes?
He's a stud. I mean, he's a stud. It was so fun. I was lucky enough to get with him a little bit, leading up to this, just being in the same town as he was, and being able to do that, get some reps, and then be able to translate that into some competition here in 7-on, and then clean up routes versus air, clean up all that stuff was so much fun, and hopefully we can continue to build a relationship and get better and compete.
Yeah, most of the questions, no matter who it was to, whether it was to Quinn or players and Daniels, was about, hey, how'd it go? How'd it go? So, again, they keep circling back to Jayden Daniels, and Luke McCaffrey giving the same answer.
Oh, he's a stud. I don't think comparisons ever do justice to anyone, whether that's who you're comparing to or whether that's the person that you're comparing. And so I don't know who I'd compare, but I know that he's one heck of a quarterback, and he's a lot of fun to play with from a personality standpoint. And so I've had a blast in just 24 hours being in D.C. with him. I'm so thankful for this receiver room, too. It's been a blast to be a part of this. Some of the vets out here, we have Kaz and Bryson, who are kind of showing all us rookies the way. And so just so thankful for those guys, and then so thankful for, the other guys that are kind of in this class with me. So it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, people who love football are going to get along, and he's somebody that loves football, and I consider myself someone who loves football, and so right off the bat, you kind of have that to relate to each other, and then from that you build your own personality, and you have your own experiences that you kind of get to mold your personality off of, and I think he's somebody that's just fun to be around. He's good energy, he's high spirits, and he's always going to be growing and learning with every rep and every opportunity.
Do you feel like your experience as a quarterback, does that help you kind of build a rapport?
Oh, it helps. It helps a lot. I think it's a position that's hard to understand unless you've played it. But I think I was lucky. The biggest thing I've noticed is the communication aspect. Is you speak the same language, you understand that, and that's something going into rookie minicamp you try and get a head start on, because it's a brand new language, it's a brand new system. You're running the same plays, but maybe the reads are a little bit different than what I've been used to in college, and so kind of just to get a head start on that in rookie camp, and then hopefully build throughout the summer, and then build in training camp, get ready for the season, and just put your best ball out there so that you can compete.
I don't know if he can catch anything. I don't know how fast he is, but kid knows how to do a news conference. Hey, that's family training, obviously. His dad doing news conferences. His mom was an athlete, too. In fact, I read something over the weekend, and I'm a little bit skeptical of this. Ed met his wife at Stanford. She was a soccer player. He was a football player, and they had all these football-playing kids. There was something out there that she ran a 4.5 pregnant. I mean, look, 4.5 is NFL speed, and as far as I know, nobody's ever run it pregnant. That seems like a stretch, and I don't know who did the timing on that, but mom's fast too. So it probably helps that the dad was fast enough and good enough to be a really good wide receiver for the Giants and the Broncos, and it probably doesn't hurt that mom was a really good athlete too. Good genetics there, and good experience behind a microphone from Luke McCaffrey. But more from Quinn, and this is about the standard that he hopes to set here. He talked about. And there was some news here as Johnny Newton, I forget which foot it is. He's had surgery on one foot, so he didn't participate in any of the drills over the weekend. He's wearing a boot. But now he's going to need the same surgery on the other foot, and we're still unclear whether that was something they found out before they drafted him or after they drafted him, and was that the reason that a projected first-round pick tackle out of Illinois was still on the board where he was in the second round. We may get some clarification on that. But what he got out of the rookies this year, all positive. This weekend, I should say, all positive. And what he expects once they start mixing with the veterans tomorrow, high hopes.
They had really good retention. So I thought the coaches and them did a really good job of a system to put in some plays and to go. There were very few busts on the first day. And so as Adam and I watched the film last night, we looked back for all the rookie camps we've been a part of and said this one was really effective. There wasn't a lot of drop passes. There wasn't, it was just efficient the way they were going. So I said, if this is what this class's starting spot could be, then I think we could be onto something here because they're already setting a really good standard.
This could be the start of something big. So they get the veterans in tomorrow as they have the full off-season workouts. Here's what he expects out of that.
I wanted to make sure I had one day with this group, to see what we have. Tuesday we'll mix, all the positions together. And as we're going through it, we just want to keep evaluating, keep pushing, see where the competition is. Over this past week, this connection of the veterans has been really strong. I anticipate them in pretty big mentorship, towards some of these younger players, a Terry down to a Luke, and that'll have a really big impact to how quickly somebody can develop. And what we would all give for when we were entering whatever job we had, for someone to say, hey man, I'll help you show the way. And so fortunately for us, we've got a number of players like that are ready to take on that approach. And I'll have a better assessment once we go through some practices.
That's Dan Quinn, coach of the team. Full off-season workouts tomorrow in Ashburn, and they'll continue through next month when they have their full mini camp and then take some time off before they head for training camp. They have not announced, by the way. I assume it's going to be in Ashburn. The deal in Richmond is over. I don't know for sure, though, where they're going to hold training camp. I'm not positive about that. They're dumping a lot of money into fixing up the stadium. They have said, and they've been very open about this, they looked at the player survey from last year and said their facilities had an F-. They want to upgrade them. I assume that's more than just the locker rooms. Could be the fields, could be the whole area around there. So I'm not sure whether they're going to hold training camp there, but that is the plan, and they don't have dates for it, but it's usually late July, 26th, 27th, something like that. So that was Dan Quinn yesterday. We'll hear from Jayden Daniels. He only talked for about 6 minutes, but I pulled a number of significant things that he said, including the way he opened up his little news conference on Saturday. Stay with us. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
I just saw something on Twitter, which shouldn't surprise me because, the Bulls, when they won their championships, that was the last century, right? The last dance happened during the 97-98 season. But today is Dennis Rodman's 63rd birthday. He's a little older than Jordan. I guess Jordan is 60 or closing in on 60. And the reason I kind of shake my head at that is Rodman was really the first guy that covered his body in tattoos in the NBA. You had players with tattoos before, But when Rodman started to tattoo himself after he left the Pistons, if you look at the bad boy Pistons, 89 and 90 when they won their titles, and you see Dennis Rodman, he doesn't have a single tattoo. And only after he left first San Antonio, that's when he started to dye his hair, and then with the Bulls, he had tattoos. Now everybody has tattoos in all sports. They're very, very common. But I wondered when I first saw him with all those tattoos, yeah, it looks good now when you're young and you're muscular. What happens when you get into your 60s? Now, he looks like he's still in pretty good shape. But when you have like these saggy arms, like those of us who get to that age start to get, and, other things, it's not really a good look. And I've always felt like if someone could invent an easy and painless way to remove tattoos, he or she would become very, very wealthy. Now, I don't know if Rodman wants to remove anything that he's got there, but when I see 63, I just think that when he was being tattooed as much as he was, like, okay, it's a good look now when you're in your 30s, but, 30 years from now, what's that going to look like? And I guess I have my answer. And we've got now generations of athletes, others, not just athletes, but many who have tattoos. Now, some look to have them removed. I think Pete Davidson spent a lot of money to get a bunch of tattoos removed. But Rodman still rolling along, bless his heart, tattooed and pierced all over the place. I know that sounds like an old man take. I understand that. It's just. I'm just a couple of years older than he is, and I couldn't imagine having any. He's got a bunch, and he seems to. I haven't heard anything like, oh, Dennis realizes he shouldn't have gotten himself all those tattoos. No, I guess he's made peace with that fact. All right, Jayden Daniels, speaking to the media on Saturday, that was his one availability. Nothing that you've heard from anybody out there would indicate that they have any remorse about drafting him number 2. They're very excited about him. Everything he's done and everything he's said has been very well received, including the way he started his news conference after coming out on the field with the number 5 that Tressway had given him.
Shout out Tress, allowing me to wear his jersey. Obviously, what it means to him, what it means to me. He's a legend here, so I'm very appreciative he allowed me to wear his jersey.
How did that go down?
Just conversation, man. Obviously, it was very hard for him. Sentimental value to him and me. So, just had a conversation. We talked, and we came up with an agreement, and now I'm able to wear it.
Are you able to share the terms of the deal?
Nah, I can't share the terms of the deal, man. That's between me and him. But I'm blessed to be able to wear it.
Now, he wouldn't reveal the terms of the deal. It's been reported that Tressway got him to agree to pay for Way and his family to go to an Oklahoma LSU game. They're I guess now in the same conference, right? SEC, with Oklahoma and Texas going there. So when that happens after he retires, he'll pay for that. But Way was very emotional about doing it. Felt good about it. He's a team captain and has not yet chosen a number. So I don't know. I guess he would be at off-season workouts tomorrow? He might be. He may just have no number on his jersey, and when they get to training camp, he'll choose one. As for the one controversy that they came into minicamp with, or that Daniels did, and that is that he had confirmed, because Malik Neighbors, who was his college teammate, they had made a bet, $10,000 bet, on who would win Rookie of the Year. Like, the one who didn't win would have to pay off. I guess if neither one got it, I guess the bet was off. But gambling, even though the NFL has gotten in bed with the DraftKings and everything else and pushing gambling all the time, they can't have the players gambling. So this was a complete no-no. And Neighbors had revealed this on the Pivot podcast. And then when Daniels was on last week with Keyshawn Johnson, Keyshawn asked him about it, and Daniels said, he wasn't supposed to say anything, but did confirm that it was a $10,000 bet. He shows up for rookie minicamp this past weekend, and he is schooled on gambling, and this is the fallout from the schooling that Daniels got.
Yeah, we were uneducated on the gambling policy in the NFL. we learned about it last night. Me and him have a conversation, and we canceled the bet. Obviously, we don't want to get in trouble with anything, so we're just focused on being the best players for our respective teams.
Yeah, that's the way to handle that. And if you are going to make a bet like that, just don't tell anybody. Don't go on podcasts and tell people that you made a $10,000 bet. That is very much frowned upon by the NFL. Back to the warm and fuzzy and the dream come true for a guy who played 5 years of college football. And let's face it, this time last year, nobody would have imagined that he would be the number 2 pick of the draft. He, as Mel Kiper told us, Jayden Daniels' mom called him last year going into the draft and said, should he declare? And Mel said, well, he's going to probably be a 3rd, maybe even a 4th round pick. He might be better off going back for another year, which he did. Now he's the number 2 pick of the draft. Now he's in uniform, and he's starting his journey in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it was a blessing, trying to soak it all in. This is my first NFL practice while also, focusing on practice. But just that 9-year-old kid in me, just realizing that his dreams came true, and now I'm here. But I still got a long way to go.
So now that sign in your bedroom, you got to get a different sign, right? What's the noon sign?
I got to figure that out, man. Try to get better each and every day. But later down the road, that's goals I set for myself personally. But it just comes out with competing every day and get better each and every day.
That sign that Scott Abraham mentioned there, that's when he was a kid, like 7 years old. He put up a sign on top of the door in his bedroom that said, I'm going to play in the NFL. Hasn't played a NFL regular season game, but he's in the NFL and he's guaranteed, I don't know what they're guaranteed, about $20 million, maybe more, something like that. This is about the part of history. And I played something last hour from Brandon Coleman, who was a 3rd-round pick of the Commanders, and he has no knowledge of the Hogs, which I find to be, I don't want to say it's disturbing, but if you're going to play offensive line here, you should know a little bit about the history. He says he's going to learn, but there should have been a little bit of schooling for him on that. This is Jayden Daniels on, those who he stands on the shoulders of, including someone who works in the organization. Doug Williams, still employed by the team. And I didn't know this. Did you know there was actual history between Jayden Daniels and Doug Williams?
I mean, I had conversations with Doug ever since I met him when I was 18 years old. Always a good guy. Obviously, what he did for this organization, what he did for black quarterbacks in general, it means a lot. For me, it's not really just looking at like what can I do for the team. It's like how can I help the team get better each and every day, myself included.
He wasn't asked about the connection going back to 18. I mean, he's 23 now, so that's at least 5 years ago, and would have been when he was at just starting out at Arizona State. I don't know whether there was Herm Edwards asked Doug to talk to him. I'm not sure, but that would be interesting to explore a little further. So it's not like they met for the first time when he showed up the other day. He's known Doug Williams for a long time. I think that's a good thing. As far as and this is the humbleness, because and again, I don't know if this is a big deal, but I'm going to make it something. You remember when Robert Griffin III went to his first rookie minicamp. He also had been the 2nd pick of the draft. With Jayden Daniels, they didn't have to give up a boatload of picks to move up to get him, which they had done, a record haul for the Rams to give up 4 spots in the draft, move from 2 to 6. And the Redskins then, were able to draft RG3, number 2. And Mike Shanahan knew he had an ego issue on his hands right away because Griffin was already insecure about the fact that they'd taken Kirk Cousins in the 4th round. So Shanahan, in his first practice, said, oh, yeah, he's the starting quarterback week 1. That's what the Bears did. Eberflus, the coach, Matt Eberflus, in the first minicamp practice said, oh, yeah, Caleb Williams is the number 1 quarterback. He's going to start the opener. Not that should surprise anybody, but, you talk about training camp competitions. You think you should have someone. Nope, no chance. He's the starter. We haven't heard anything like that from Dan Quinn, and it doesn't sound like Jayden Daniels is going to push him for that right now.
I mean, just going through the lumps of being a rookie and trying to learn how to be a pro. However that is, that's on the field, off the field, man. Just trying to learn as much as possible. I don't have a definitive answer for you. What I need to work on, I'm just trying to learn as much as possible.
Yeah, he's acknowledging there's going to be lumps. I think you have to recognize that. As far as what type of leader he is going to be, I remember this with the Wizards back in the day, and you had young players on that team, and you had some veterans, and Chris Webber, who was supposed to be the leader of that team. No, I'm too young to lead. We got older guys on the team. That's not what we're hearing from Jayden Daniels. He understands the role, but he's also not going to force it in any way. This was his answer about leadership. I found it good.
Just being myself, being a hard worker. Don't try to be somebody I'm not. People see real from fake, authentic, and who's not. So just go out there, just be myself. Try to make connections. Talk to people. Obviously, I'm 23. It's a lot of different age ranges in this locker room. So trying to relate as much as possible. Show them, I'm all about the team. I'm all about hard work. And I'm just here to get better each and every day.
All right. Good. I don't think you can say it any better than Jayden Daniels said it over the weekend. One more comment, and this might be the steal of the draft. Mike Sansestrill, Mikey they call him, from Michigan, who many ways was the leader of that defense, a great defensive team at Michigan. And you may have heard Nick Saban say this while he was doing the draft coverage with ESPN. He was part of a show with Reese Davis. And he said, pound for pound, Mikey Sansestrill might be the best player in the draft. And there's nothing, on tape that would lead you otherwise. He is small, and he did qualify it with pound for pound. I think he's like 5'9", but he started out as a receiver. So it's not like one of these defensive backs who can't catch. He can catch. And he's got great speed, and he might be, as things evolve, and Dan Quinn addressed this a little bit over the weekend as well, the new changes in the kickoff rule. He didn't commit to Sansestrill being his kick returner, but that could wind up being the case as well. But in the meantime, he also is saying the right things about coming into the NFL.
Just coming out and being the ultimate competitor, wanting to, win every rep. And just, battle it out with these guys. It's a group of great guys, who are out here trying to compete for a spot. So just come in every day and just be the, biggest competitor I could be.
And Mike, obviously there's a lot of interest in all the draft picks, but Jayden in particular has kind of commanded a lot of attention. I'm curious, what you've learned about him just from being around the last couple of days and just out here on the field today. He's
a great guy. Today out here on the field, he's just showing that, he's a great competitor, great quarterback, and, just coming out here doing the things that, he's been blessed to do, and just, competing, again, for a spot.
What are some of the things, as you go look through the defensive playbook and all that, just learning techniques, what are going to be some of the bigger adjustments do you feel for yourself?
Just learning the new language. I think that's really it.
So that's the weekend wrap. The biggest controversy was over a T-shirt. Say came out of it pretty well. T-shirt that Dan Quinn wore with the feathers hanging off of the W, the logo W on his shirt, which was not a licensed product, and stirs up the whole issue of the name, and leads some to, they're going to go back. No, they're not going back to Redskins. But whether or not that was a big mistake on his part, or maybe just a trial balloon, is it possible? They said, hey, Dan, put this on and see what the reaction is. Possible. I don't think likely, but possible. But we may get some clarification on that in the next couple of days. We got Brian Anderson was on with Rich Eisen last week, and Anderson has been the Brewers TV announcer and knows Bob Uecker. You can't have enough Bob Uecker stories. He's got a couple of those. We'll get to those in about 10 or 15 minutes or so. I wanted to mention this. This was in the editorial section of the Post over the weekend, and it was Saturday's paper. And it's a letter to the editor from Barry Epstein. And the headline is, Sports Letters Would Be a Home Run. Barry Epstein of Silver Spring, I have no idea how old he is, but he says, I propose that the Post set aside space in the sports section once a week for publication of letters and ideas from readers, maybe on Sundays. At a time when coverage of sports has gotten to be an afterthought in many newspapers and Post competitors have totally done away with scores and local commentary, the Post should be applauded for continuing to run outstanding stories about high school athletics. Nevertheless, I can't be the only one who would like to express amazement that the Nationals have gone from a team that had countless players picked off bases to one that has shown dedication to stealing or taking an extra base. Is this a result of managerial decisions, the contributions of first base coach Gerardo Parra? And how about the Washington Capitals continuing to rely on a chase routine on power plays that often results in failures? Let us fanatics have a say. And I had to chuckle at this a little bit because I was part of the transition of the way that athletes viewed coverage and previously, prior to 1987. We're coming up on, the 37th anniversary of the start of WFAN in New York. I was part of the original staff. And I remember this, at how the athletes changed their perception of the way they were treated by the media. Used to be that the columnists were the lead dogs. Like, very few people on television did commentary. And while there were talk shows in sports, they were usually like an hour, and they were like at 6 or 7 at night, maybe an hour and a half. And the host would take some calls and so forth. But it wasn't 24 hours a day of sports yakking. And so I remember Kevin McReynolds, who was a player for the Mets, and he was struggling. And Howie Rose, who's been the longtime radio announcer at that time, was doing the pre- and the post-game show. And part of the post-game show, he would take calls from callers. And the callers were just piling up on Kevin McReynolds for all the problems he was having. Got so bad that his wife called the station as a caller and said, hey, stop picking on my husband. But as time would go on into the 80s, late in the 80s and into the 90s, that became a bigger factor. Oh, those fans are ripping us on the radio. Those guys are ripping us on the radio. And the columnists, who would still be critical, didn't have quite the impact that they would have. I mean, it used to be like a badge of honor. Tony told me this when he was a columnist. If he'd rip a player, he'd make sure he'd show up in the locker room the next day. You got something to say to me, something to my face, say it. Now, we maybe have come full circle where readers of a newspaper are looking to become like callers. This guy, Barry Epstein's, apparently got a lot of opinions. He wants to talk about how well the Nationals run the bases. He wants to talk about the Capitals continuing to rely on a chase routine on power plays. I mean, this is pretty high-level stuff. He says, let us write letters to the paper. I mean, the instantaneousness of radio. I mean, I took calls for years. I don't do it anymore. I don't miss it necessarily. But the instantaneous reaction that you wouldn't have on radio, you would have with a letter going to the paper. I don't know. It's interesting. It used to be, you throw out some opinions. Let's take some calls. In the paper, here's my opinion. Let's take some letters. And is he saying snail mail? I guess you can get it there overnight with an email. I don't know. Has Barry Epstein caught on to something, or is he just an old guy that's out of touch and should recognize that newspapers are not in the business of basically acting like sports radio? I don't know. It's been a long run for me, and I just look at things that happen like this and just say, maybe. Who knows? All right, that's a wrap for me. Tony is coming up next, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.